Hello, everybody, and welcome to the webinar for today. My name is Mike Jones, and I'll be talking to you today about 1984 tech advances and/or police state. So a little bit about background about me. I was former anonymous, served time in the voice communications as well as written and electronic intelligence. As a penetration tester, I worked on both sides of the fence when I was in Anonymous. I gave threat intelligence back to the groups that I was working in while performing pen tests and threat intelligence for different organizations. That accumulated, became a stack of cases against me. And in 2016, the FBI and U.S. Attorney's Office decided to pull me in and have a talk about doing some internal intelligence for them on foreign groups. So surveillance. I'm sure everybody knows what surveillance is. The dictionary term that defines surveillance is close watch kept over someone or something. In this case, I'll be talking about electronic equipment, people, places. So I was looking through the internet before today and was trying to come up with some decent numbers as far as surveillance. UK and US are pretty much on top as far as CCTV cameras per 100 people. There are some sites that have UK right underneath China, 6 different provinces in China and in the UK. So in the US, when they founded the United States of America, one of the forefathers came up with a slogan that they went by. They who can give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. After 9/11, if they gave up that little bit of control to the government. Patriot Act that was put into effect at October 26th of 2001. And it basically, they coined it uniting and strengthening America by providing appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct terrorism. If that's not a long and convoluted name, I don't know what it is. And it was pretty much a blanket act that gave the government pretty much they started their surveillance campaign after 9/11. One of the tools that they used at the NSA, some NSA employees actually were caught using the tool to spy on spouses, ex-spouses, etc. So, there were multiple abuses of power during post 9/11. And this was something interesting too. Anytime there's a natural disaster or a terrorist attack or something that creates fear or panic, it seems that there's always a number of laws or acts that come up to help the government maintain peace and also to gain insight into what the population is doing, as far as who they contact, where they congregate, etc. So after the pandemic, the UK government decided that they were going to institute their own version of what we called the Patriot Act, and the law enforcement and government were opening up a website to help people report other people, like their neighbors, who are violating lockdown procedures or who are taking part in risky behavior that might encourage a pandemic. Either way, it's using citizens against other citizens to try to police and keep that surveillance going. So back after 9/11, one of the effects that the Patriot Act and 9/11 and the terrorist attacks had was it created a lot of panic. We were under attack from an enemy that didn't wear uniforms. We didn't know who they were. They were living among us. So they used that and helped create more panic and more fear, a lot of fear mongering. They did warrantless wiretaps. Like I said before, they did telephone records. At first, it was supposed to be any contact an American citizen has with a foreign national. That conversation had the ability to be tapped. But what happened was they started blanket wiretapping individuals, U.S. and foreign, which violated their own Patriot Act. They dug email and just continued the fear mongering. There was a little boy in Irving, Texas, where I lived at the time, and he had a project where he had to create, some sort of device using electronics. So he built an alarm clock using electronic components and boards and all the parts he needed for it. Took it to school, and as the teachers immediately called the police and had the police come down, and he was arrested because what they thought was a bomb was actually a clock. But because of all the fear mongering and all the hate that was going around post 9/11, this little boy was targeted and pursued. He eventually hired a lawyer and got off the situation and got the police and law enforcement off his back. But it was a really bad display of power. So companies like Amazon and Facebook and Google, are they really here to help provide services, free services, make our life easier? Or are they there to help collect data for other purposes? We know that Google and Facebook have sold data in the past and have also been pretty bad at leaking data. They also have relationships with the U.S. government. I did some training on how to look at social networks to build an intelligence picture. So those platforms are very useful, and the government definitely has their hands in those buckets of data because it's a treasure trove of U.S. surfing behaviors, individual behaviors, and sometimes they use those to carry out some of those warrantless wiretaps. Amazon has a neat little device that they're putting out that's already out that has a camera and a microphone with a screen that you can make calls on, and they're wanting you to put those in all your rooms. I don't know about you, but I'm not really going to put anything with a camera and a microphone into my bedroom where Amazon thinks it should go. And those devices are always listening. There is no off switch unless you unplug it or disconnect it from the Wi-Fi, but they continuously listen. And there's several people who listen on the other side. Amazon employees in Romania, contractors, had reported they'd listened to thousands of audio clips. This was not warranted. This was not something that law enforcement had them do. This was just something that they did. Multiple devices with voice and video recording capabilities. Pretty much everything that's coming out now, they try to pack in as many smart functions as they can into those devices. Like TVs, you now have webcams, you now have Chromecast built into the TVs. They basically have become large computers running entertainment systems. So these are some of the devices that I've been speaking about, and I'll show you some of the vulnerabilities in some of these devices. Chromecast being one of the main ones that I've been focusing on lately. So some of the tools that I've used and that other people have used that are open to the public thanks to the US government are Eternal Blue and Weeping Angel. Eternal Blue took advantage of a Microsoft vulnerability. When you ran the Eternal Blue exploit, it gave you complete control over that device, audio, video, keystrokes, everything gave you complete control. Weeping Angel basically turned Samsung smart TVs into room taps with audio, video, basically becoming someone in your house. The part that disturbed me the most was the fact that it required a level of physical access, which means that the CIA and MI5 were actually infiltrating buildings and premises to use this tool on specific devices. So you can see where that's going as far as breach of civil liberty. In Houston, we have the ring neighborhoods. The police have decided that since Ring is really popular, has the capability of audio and video, a lot of people are buying it. They put together an operation where you can opt into these communities and share that video. To me, that's kind of an overreach of policing. You know, I don't really want someone monitoring the front of my house, audio and video, 24 hours a day. Now, it does report suspicious behaviors, and it can help. But the problem is not only is the government behind some of the monitoring, but if they can monitor it, so can I, and so can the next hacker. So let's talk a little bit about Facebook and Google. A lot of people, see it as, oh, well, it's free email, or, I get X amount of cloud storage, and it's free. But it's not really free because you're actually the product. Your searches, your online behaviors, that is the product. And they sell that information to advertising companies and different companies that try to mold their campaigns based on metadata and searches that individuals have done to see where their product will fit the best. And that's where you get the targeted ads. And again, nothing is free. There's always a price to pay with anything that you get on the internet. So another thing that I like to tell people too is cameras, surveillance systems. If you can see your cameras, more than likely so can I. On the left, I was doing some CI work, some confidential informant work with the US government. That screenshot was taken from a system overseas. The screenshot on the right was actually a surveillance system that I had the capability to move and maneuver the camera, and I could actually zoom in on their point of sale system sitting on the table right in front of the cash register. So anything that went through that point of sale system, I was able to see on the screen. Alarm systems. A lot of people will tie their alarm systems into their DVR with their surveillance equipment. Unfortunately, this individual had their surveillance system, their DVR, their building alarm system, their door locks all tied into the same DVR system. So once you exploited the DVR, you had control over basically everything with this location. Back when I was not such a nice guy, I took advantage of this camera system and drove this poor guy crazy, setting off the alarm system every time the alarm went off, the doors would lock, lights would go, blinking. And you can tell by the photo, the screenshot, that he was a little frustrated. So I spoke briefly about Chromecast. So after COVID-19 started gaining momentum, I started looking at different ways that the government or different people would broadcast messages to the public. What I did find was Chromecast is built into a lot of smart TVs, and a lot of people, when they deploy Chromecast, don't really look at how they're deploying it. And there were over 70,000 Chromecasts exposed to the internet just from a quick search. So I did a little proof of concept on the Chromecast. Took a video that I had found. It was a spoof video coming from the BBC talking about a weapon of mass destruction, a virus being released in the air, etc. So you can see, I used the tool. I figured out which TV that I wanted to exploit and basically just injected the video into the Chromecast. And there's different directories within Chromecast that basically show you the configuration. I won't get into too much of that, but the tool is very useful and it's really effective on all smart TVs that have Chromecast built in. This is another screenshot of the actual video. It came with a really high-pitched squeal too to get people's attention, which is really annoying. So let's talk a little bit about post-COVID-19 and some of the, I guess, helping applications and some of the measures taken to help protect people and where they're going and the roadmap. So when the UK had the NHS Tracing App, they decided to go ahead and rush it to the public, telling the public that this is what they were going to do, and they were going to introduce it into a very small percentage of people, have them deploy it, and see how it works. Well, the app runs off of the Bluetooth LE. So there are inherent vulnerabilities within Bluetooth already, not to mention all the other vulnerabilities that come up for specific devices, whether it be Samsung or iOS. The first version of the app failed because of iOS incompatibility and incompatibility with previous older phones. Some of the concerns that we had on this app was the ability to look at the identifiers, look at how the sessions are set up, and look at the distance needed for this app to work. Bluetooth is a very small proximity as far as operation range. But years ago, there was a group that did a Bluetooth sniper rifle that you were able to pick up Bluetooth beacons from miles away. And you can kind of take that and look at how this app is going to operate and look at the type of information you can glean from exploiting these devices. Not to mention, obtaining that data, which would be completely detrimental. Also, when you're looking at devices or maybe services that you want to set up, deploy it smart. Design and deploy your architecture smart. I would venture to say that the Atomic Energy Commission of Syria probably would do better with their squirrel mail internal rather than facing the internet. But these are the type of things that you see on the internet. They're publicly accessible, they're cached in Google, and these are just bad configuration. And this, being that it's an Atomic Energy Commission, either A, it's a honeypot, or B, it's legit, and they just have really bad architecture. Some of the tools that you can use to test for vulnerabilities on your own architecture when deploying different types of communication devices is vast. Now, I helped write this distro years ago, and it's still pretty relevant today. It has a lot of Cisco exploits for Cisco phones and for telepresence. It has a lot of SIP exploits, so you can look at different soft phones you're deploying, or even in a business setting, SIP phones, Cisco phones, or Cisco architecture. You can actually run your pen test on the architecture from this live distro. And buy smart. understand all the capabilities the device has. When you get the device and you unbox it, take a look at everything, that comes with it, all the manuals, read the manuals, get intimate with that device, because there's always some little nuance to the device. I call them vulnerabilities. Some companies call them features, but the truth lies somewhere in between. And the government has been listening, will be listening. Intelligence is what makes the world go round as far as the governments go, especially after a pandemic. The world is on reset, so the governments want to take a look at the population, the tone, the temperament, how people are reacting to each other in public, and just be safe. Use your common sense. We haven't seen any groundbreaking 0 days during this pandemic. So do the basics, your email security, your Wi-Fi security. When you're at home, working from home now, treat your home as if you would treat your workplace. Because when you walk into a building for work, there's a psychological change that takes place. You adapt to your surroundings and your environment, and you take on that behavior. So, when you're at work, you have all these policies that guard you on the systems that you operate with. Use those same policies at home and try to get your family involved in, locking down your systems and showing them how important it is. That way you can, maintain operations at work in a sanitary way. And that's about it. I don't know if we have any questions. I don't see anything in the chat box. But there's my Twitter handle if you want to reach out. Also, Cryptology is a company that we started to do pen testing and threat intelligence. And Sapphire, if you need speakers, Sapphire handles a lot of speakers, and you can book me through Sapphire. Thank you.